Even in its last hours, life often feels unremarkable. For Andrew Watt, on July 21, 2025, that was exactly how things seemed. He and Ozzy Osbourne exchanged messages and caught up in the way that had become habitual over years of collaboration. Everything was normal. Watt would later reflect, no forewarning, no sense of finality. It was just another day in the rhythm they had established. Check in, discuss projects, share small talk. Yet the following morning, the world would shift. The suddenness of Ozzy's passing would cast that normal conversation in stark relief. Watt has said that to hear him and Ozzy speaking so casually shortly before his death felt surreal in hindsight. The fact that nothing seemed amiss underscores both the unpredictability of life and the tragedy of loss. In these early hours of reflection, Watt asks, how do we interpret the ordinary when it precedes the extraordinary? How do we hold in memory that moment of calm just before disaster? For him, that day is haunted by absence, by what seems now like a day that should have meant more than it did at the time. The morning of July 22 brought news that would shatter the illusion of continuity. Watt's recollection of hearing that Ozzy had died is suffused with disbelief. Just hours earlier, he had spoken to Ozzy in that normal cadence. Now, his friend was gone. He describes the shock not merely as emotional but existential. How could the world change so drastically overnight? It felt like being pulled from reality into a nightmare. The contrast between what was normal and what became irreversible was too great. Watt has often said that he and Ozzy communicated daily over many years, conversations about music, life, and everything in between. That deep connection makes the abrupt finality all the more cruel. At first, he struggled with the idea that those last messages, that last chat, would be the final ones. There are no more to come. He wrestles with memory and regret. Did I say enough? Did I express everything I meant to? The silence left behind is deafening. Part of Watt's grief is rooted in how deeply he understood Ozzy beyond his public persona. He speaks of Ozzy not just as the Prince of Darkness, but as a perceptive, witty, even mystical presence. Watt recalls that Ozzy had a way of seeing people, their strengths and flaws, in a way few others did. He could see you in your good, your bad, Watt says. Ozzy's intuitive sense, sometimes described as witchy, made him more than a rock icon. He was a mirror, a confidant. In the studio, this perception translated into engagement. Ozzy was deeply involved in mixing decisions, sonic balance, and the smallest details. Watt recounts that Ozzy challenged him. Listen to Led Zeppelin, what's the loudest instrument? The answer was not straightforward. Through this, Watt learned that the bass, not the drums, often held the power in rock. Ozzy pushed him to hear differently. Thus, Ozzy becomes, in Watt's memory, both teacher and friend, not an unreachable myth, but a demanding, supportive collaborator who expected honesty. That kind of relationship makes the void he leaves even more profound. Working with Ozzy during his final years transformed Watt's perception of music. It ceased to feel like a sequence of songs and instead became a kind of purpose, a balm, a shared life force. Ozzy had endured health challenges, including a serious fall in 2019, and in their collaborations, music became part of his healing, laughter, expression, vitality. Watt says these albums were not just creative projects but lifelines. For Ozzy, the studio was sanctuary. For Watt, it became a place to witness resilience. They created Ordinary Man 2020 and Patient Number 9 2022. Those works, Watt insists, are more than Alice tracks. They encapsulate struggle, joy, memory, and legacy. In reflecting now, Watt says those albums offered growth. For Ozzy, it was a chance to keep connecting. For Watt, it was a pathway into becoming a fuller producer. He grew in confidence under Ozzy's guidance. He saw that music could heal, bridge, and endure. On July 5, 2025, Ozzy returned to the stage for Back to the Beginning, a farewell concert that would become part of his legend. Watt witnessed it not purely as a performance but as a gathering of Ozzy's life, collaborators, friends, history itself. Watt described the experience as unbelievable and almost a dream sequence. He felt that for the last month of Ozzy's life, reality itself had a dreamlike quality. The night before the show, Watt visited Ozzy's hotel room. They talked for hours, shared a curry, and simply hung out. Those quiet hours now resonate as deeply significant. Watt recalls the atmosphere of the concert weekend as something beyond a concert, like a heavy metal summer camp, with reunion, reverence, and energy all coalescing. Even in the midst of spectacle, Watt sensed the weight of that moment. This might truly be the last time. In the wake of Ozzy's death, Watt confronted not only grief but disorientation. The aftershock of loss unravels routine, memory, and time itself. He speaks of going through the news coverage, reading tributes, and feeling the world shifting under his feet. He revisits that last conversation again and again, wondering what it meant, whether there was anything he missed. He must balance private mourning with public expectation, managing relationships, managing projects, managing silence. The grief is not just loss of a friend, but loss of a collaborator and the possibility of future creation with him. Watt acknowledges that the world is less bright without Ozzy's laughter and presence. He calls Ozzy one of his best friends, his teacher, a constant in his life, and says the world is less cool without him. Yet he must find a way forward to live with absence. Memory is slippery between what we recall and what we idealize. For Watt, remembering Ozzy means preserving authenticity, the jokes, the critiques, the vulnerabilities, not just the myth. He resists the tendency to sanctify. Instead, he holds tight to the real man, impatient, funny, hungry for art. Ozzy's flaws and brilliance were inseparable. Over time, Watt sees his role as a steward of legacy, guarding how Ozzy is recalled, how unreleased music might be handled, how stories are told. The line between memory and myth is delicate. He fears distortion, overglorification, or forgetting the messy humanity. His reflection is bittersweet. Every tribute is welcome, but he wants truth above all. From Ozzy, Watt emerged changed in confidence, in perspective, in approach. He learned to listen deeply, to challenge himself, to value nuance, and to honor the spaces between notes. Ozzy constantly tested Watt's assumptions on mixing, on arrangement, on emotional honesty. The bass lesson with Led Zeppelin is just one anecdote among many. Watt now carries those lessons forward in every project. He also learned about mortality, that life can shift overnight, that creative urgency matters, that relationships matter more than output. These insights inform how he now works, how he now lives. What remains undone is as haunting as what was completed. Watt hints at unreleased material, at talks of continuing work, but he remains cautious about promises. He grapples with whether to release posthumous tracks, how to preserve quality, and how to balance honoring Ozzy's standards with honoring fans' desire to hear more. In those incomplete notes and lost takes lie possibility, risk, and memory. Watt must decide how to open the vault, if at all. This chapter is Watt wrestling with what to leave silent, what to bring to light, and how those decisions will shape Ozzy's posthumous voice. Lost does not end, it evolves. Watt, in his ongoing life and work, carries Ozzy's spirit with him. He finds ways to keep his influence alive, in sound decisions, in mentorship, in memory. He resolves to live in a way that honors what Ozzy meant to him, to stay curious, bold, generous, and direct. He knows grief will never fully fade, but over time, he hopes the pain will recede enough to let gratitude and inspiration shine through. In the quiet moments, he returns to that final conversation, normal, trivial, full. He cherishes it now as a sacred relic, and he moves forward doing what he and Ozzy shared best, making music, making life meaningful.